Welcome. My name is Dr. Harry Cohen, the author of Be the Sun, Not the Salt. I'm joined by my co-host, Connie Fontaine, Chief Super Spreader. Connie, what chapter are we doing today?
Today, as part of Gentle Nudge series, we're up to chapter 28, Practice, 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 which is our everyday mantra. And I think for those that don't know, we started doing this Gentle Nudge series as part of the episodes that we do with our podcast because we find that they're very valuable to us, reviewing the chapter every day, a very specific chapter every day, because it's part of what this one's about today, which is chapter 28, Practice, Practice, Practice. Doing these gentle nudges is our version of practice.
It really is. You know, I don't know what chapter is the day until I look at it in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this one, too, because it's the parable of the two wolves, the ancient parable of the young man who asks his grandfather, what is the secret to life? And the grandfather explains that there's a battle that rages daily inside us, which is the forces of evil and the forces of good. They're like two wolves that fight. And the young grandson says, well, which wolf wins? And the grandfather says, the wolf you feed. And so what this is about is feeding the good wolf and starving the evil wolf. And those are two great practices, which is feed the tendency for us to do and be good and starve the tendency for us to do and be evil. And you say, well, why?
Or even just negative emotions, right? It's also just like, it's about the good and the bad. But it's the simple stuff too. It's just like what would feed you, your body and your mind, and what takes away from your day.
Now, this is important to understand because people misinterpret negative emotions as something that should be pushed down, avoided at all costs. And it's a huge misunderstanding. We don't want to feed negative emotions. We want to acknowledge and honor them and learn from them and recognize them. But the difference is feeding a negative emotion will fuel that fire. And it's not a wise strategy. So let's just pick anger as an example. When you are on a continuum from irritated, annoyed, furious, and angry, you don't want to fuel that by feeding it. Oh my God, you know what else she did? And you know what else? And it reminded me. And another thing, it's just going to work us into a frenzy versus acknowledge what we're feeling, but don't necessarily feed it and make it worse. Pick some quote unquote negative emotions, disgust, anger, fear,
irritation.
All of those are very healthy and normal to understand, but you don't want to pour lighter fluid on the fire.
Yes. And the flip side is starting with feeding the good emotions, the good positivity. I know one way, and we've talked about this with a chapter on gratitude, is, feeding and starting off the day, not like, oh, here we go again. I got to do this. I got to get up. It's starting with, oh my gosh, I get to.
And that little shift, that little tiny mental shift from got to get to, I've heard myself say it, and then I catch myself.
Yeah, you do.
And it's the catching that is the good, which is feeding the good wolf, feeding the good side of us. This is a great expression. Neurons that fired together, wired together. The more that we feed the good wolf and not the bad wolf, the easier and more automatic our reflexes are. It still doesn't stop us from, when someone cuts us off on the highway and the reflex and the anger rises, you can just decide in that moment, okay, easy, big fella, settle down, she or he.
And that's the practice part of it.
And that does take
practice.
practice.
You said it first, you acknowledge it, you realize what you're doing, you choose, because that's the other piece of it, you choose not to feed that negativity, and you go the other direction when you can.
And there's lots of ways to do both. Use which techniques and strategies and behaviors work for you. But just this basic principle, I want to feed the good wolf, I don't want to feed the bad wolf, which is not to say that there are bad emotions.
Right.
We're not saying that.
Yes, because those are important to acknowledge. I love the idea around practice because it's also similar to whether it's a meditation practice, a yoga practice. I mean, there's there seems to be a heliotropic muscle that gets stronger the more you practice. And if you choose to try and be your best self every day, every interaction, there's the power of it, because it does get easier.
Now, that insight, Connie, is huge, which is any practice. Pick any practice. I just started to learn piano, but yoga practice, exercise practice, any practice that you work at, it does get easier. Doesn't get easy per se, but it gets easier and more automatic with practice. So the joy is in the doing of the practice, period.
Yeah, we've said that, this content is simple and it's easy, but not necessarily easy to practice. No, it's easy to practice it. It's not necessarily easy to do all the time. So the practice actually makes it easier.
Keep it going. That's our job.
That's right. That's our job. That's our job. So today we've inspired ourselves to continue to practice it. And hopefully we've inspired you to continue this practice with us. And hopefully you're sharing this practice with others. Please follow our podcast and make sure that your friends are too. And thanks for listening today.